can show you.
So
And,
yeah, let's
and
do a little Elmo.
you want to show that? And when I was looking through it to show you some samples, there are some good ones. There are some ones that aren't as good, and you kind of don't know exactly where they go. I'm still kind of in control. I give them a piece of tape, you know, right now. At that point, we used it for narratives too, where I gave them a couple pieces to tape on their desk and they could use them, and they love it. Yeah,
We got the Elmo.
they love it. This was one, and I wanted to show you an average student. I didn't want to take, I brought my high, but I wanted to show you this is an average student, and okay. So, and I had to kind of go through it a couple times. I also gave them shells, and then they had to, in their group, I gave them one shell, and they'd tell me why that shell was the best. So this is that piece about the shell. And she has up here, I also think that this is the best. It is bumpy on the bottom. It feels like sandpaper. And she had, I also think it is the best because it has cement on it. So she revised that and said, I also think it is the best because the cement is like smooth wallpaper. And she came up with that. I thought that was pretty cool. And she's average. I mean, even, you know, top of the low. So I liked that one. This one was very simple, but I thought this is kind of what I was getting at. Are you able to revise so that it makes sense? So this student brought in a collection and had a little collection of dogs. It says, I think that the Dalmatian is the best because it's not too big or not too small and it's just right for size. So they revised it to, and it's just the right size. So just by switching those, I thought that that was a really good one too. So in that, you know, honestly, when I did this, they couldn't figure out what a sentence was to go back and revise one sentence. So when I taught it, I had to think on my feet and I had to kind of go backwards. So I had them get out a brown crayon. Will you underline one sentence with a brown crayon? And they did this with partners. So I had to kind of go back because they would underline one word. And as I walked around, I was like, no, that's not what I want. So I said, will you get out a brown crayon? Will you underline one sentence? And I kind of went around and looked, and if it was close, and I said, now revise just that piece, because it was too hard for them. So I kind of went back again, and then this is what I got after that. Yeah. You want one more?
Show your
Okay.
top one.
Want me to show my top one?
Yeah, what can a top first grader do?
This is my top. I think that the shoe-shaped rock is the best. So he brought in a rock collection. One reason is it looks like there are waves in it. I think that because there is blue and white following the waves. And so he revised it to say, one reason it looks like there are waves in it, I think the huge waves are in the middle of the rock. And then he goes on, I mean, he's got all this. And this and this. And this is a one sit. Yeah, and it looks like this. So, yeah. So here's my top one, I would say.
So questions, some other questions for Sherry? I guess I have one. Where does this fall? You're doing the unit of study. Where
Yep.
does it fall? Where does this
Yep.
lesson fall? all?
Yeah.
In the unit of study?
Lucy has 3 bends for this opinion writing. This was at the end of the first bend. So we had brought in a collection. We had written 2 or 3 pieces. So they had written what they thought was their best out of the collection. And I had brought in shells, and they wrote which shell they thought was the best. And so we've started now the second bend. And the second bend is opinions on restaurants. So it's kind of like giving a review and an opinion on which do they think is best. So they take what they have here, which one is the best and why, but now they add to it. And so we were writing the other day, and we looked at one. There's a bunch of really neat websites by kids. They write their own reviews. So we analyzed one, and it talked about I recommend. So we wrote, I recommend it because, so they wrote about Chinese food, and I recommend the Chinese chicken because it is sweet, and things like that. So that's the last one. So we're in bend 2. So this was just at the end of bend 1. And then she goes on to bend 3, and that'll be, I think, the last formal one that you'll publish.
What are bends?
I figure them kind of as chunks, as pieces. Like this is the first piece to get them into it. The second one is, okay, start them on a review and start them with your opinions. And then kind of the third is more formal and going toward the publishing. She kind of just breaks it down into bends, she calls them.
Kind of scaffolding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like this piece, the first bend all had to do with your collection when they brought in their collection. And the second bend is, okay, take home your collection. Now we're going to look at restaurants, movies, toys, video games, things like that. And you write your opinion on those.
And do you continue to build more like skills as you teach that?
I think so.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, I'm in the second lesson of Bend 2 right now, where she had them look at different reviews, and then she goes back and you have to talk about, if you give a reason like it's spicy, then you have to talk a little bit about what was spicy. And then when I looked further ahead, she says you might even tell a narrative story. One time I was at a Chinese restaurant and I had chicken and it was really spicy, something like that.
Wow.
That's what I was looking at, yeah. So she does kind of build, and she gives the kids lots of choices to choose from. They're not going to include all of that, but if they pick up on something, then they'll put that in there. So that's where we're heading. Yep.
Off the top of your head, do you have the name of the websites that our students?
Honestly, I Googled reviews by kids, and it came up. One was slime something,
Yeah.
Slime Kids, or
Yeah, we just did restaurants too.
slimekids.com. One I think was Kids Pick something, because it was about the movies. But yeah, I just Googled it and came up with a couple neat sites.
And I think so often we think, oh, first graders, oh, kindergartners, they don't have
Yeah.
opinions.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, they do. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Well, and
Big
it's that
difference.
whole evidence piece. You
Yes.
brought that out in the revising. So it's cute, so what makes you say it's cute? And what
Right.
did you say? I don't know.
Right. I said, can you tell me what's cute? And she said no. Yep.
Does your whole school use the Lucy?
They use a combination of Lucy or Mesa. And some even flip back and forth. We're kind of having that conversation in our district right now. And so far, the answer has been you can kind of flip back and forth. And that's K-5. Yep.
Did you purchase the new, obviously?
Our district did, yeah.
For
Yep.
just the people that wanted them?
No, they purchased them for everybody. But that was K2 in our building. And then we have a 3-5, and I don't know if they have them or not.
Can you tell me more about flipping back and forth? Our district doesn't use Lucy, and I'm trying the basic business, the writing ones this year.
Yeah. I've only used the Lucy. Right now, we were just having that conversation. We haven't looked at the Mesa ones. I've been talking to a couple of kindergarten teachers because she wants to know if what she's doing in Mesa matches up to what I do in first grade. And what I have noticed, what she was saying with Lucy, is, especially with the opinion writing, that it seemed like she really scaffolded that because she was doing things in kindergarten that didn't really seem like opinion writing, but yet when I start to teach opinion writing, she refers back to things they did in kindergarten. And if they don't have that, then they're looking at me like, what? We didn't do that. So I think she really scaffolds it so it might not look exactly like what you're thinking opinion writing looks like. And I'm not sure about the going back and forth. I think that they think some lessons get at opinion writing a little bit better. Seems to have come up most with opinion writing is what I'm seeing, and that's new, for teachers
It is.
right now.
And
Yeah.
when you think about that, I think narrative is something people have done a
Yeah.
lot of.
Yeah.
But when you get into the opinion, it is new.
Yeah.
And so thinking through all the little
Yeah.
nuances of supporting kids, and Lucy's
To
been
start.
doing this for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we just had a discussion today, even with the kids about, because we're getting into the informational and how, you use the word nonfiction. Well, every single type of writing they're doing is nonfiction. The narrative,
Right.
that's nonfiction. The personal essay is nonfiction. The informational is nonfiction. And just being careful of some, so I just was
Right.
curious, when you're saying you can go back and forth between Lucy
Right.
and Mesa, is the language gonna,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess
I think for me personally, my opinion, I think you have to be careful.
Yeah.
Because you want to keep that integrity of the unit and you want to keep that language, and you don't want to start to stray too much because
Right.
you're going to it'll break down. Do you have anything, Susan?
I just was curious because we're pretty much trained we got city people, why did they choose to go to Mesa? I don't think they wanted to spend their money on the roof.
Oh.
And is there any dialogue about if people really want the Lucy kids? It doesn't? Yeah.
No.
That's where we are.
So one thing I'll say is that I think foundationally, the bends that you refer to,
Mhm.
so the units are written around that